to probably not during the show. Once we kill the recording, I would love to hear a little bit about the technical side.
Sure.
I don't want to use this as like a free coaching session or anything, but you've been doing this a long time. So yeah, I'd love to learn about the technical side of how you produce so many videos. Because if I'm not mistaken, it's just you and Jocelyn, right? You don't have like a team that works with you creating all these videos or anything. It's just you guys.
Well, yeah, the filming and most of the editing I do, and all the all the B-roll, all that stuff I do. I do now have a editing company in the Philippines that I give them a big raw video that's like, let's say it's 20 minutes long, and they take out the me screwing up 10 times. I mean,
just the very basic.
Just the basic stuff, because I think it's too much work to tell them which is this gate, which is the Brandenburg gate, and which is the not brand. It's just it takes us so much time. So, but them cutting out just the mess ups probably saves me 2 to 3 hours per video.
Oh wow, that's
awesome.
So
nice.
Yeah, I mean it was a game changer, but they still can't help in all the ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
So now that we have the recording rolling, we've had a chance to get acquainted a little bit. Would you guys do us the wonderful honor of giving us like a snapshot, short or as long as you want, about your background? How did Wolters World come to be, and where you guys are at, currently, like how many videos you guys are putting out on a regular basis?
Would you like to be on?
So Wolters World sort of worked a little bit, but it started because we were engaged, much like the two of you. Mark was living in Portugal, and I was living in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
So we had this ocean between us, literally, and
but our love was big enough to cross it.
It did. So Mark was trying to make videos just around Lisbon, so that I'd been there, but give me a little more cultural insight and understanding about like where things were. It was like really basic stuff. But during that time, Mark went to Italy, and he had read in this guidebook, and he was staying with friends of ours. He's actually best man in their wedding this year. He was staying there, and he's like, hey, this guidebook says this town, whatever, is just incredible. I need to go see it. And his friends were like, we've never heard of that. And these are Italians, mind you,
That live in Veneto, in the same region.
In the same region. They're like, yeah, we don't know what that is. And so he went, and it sucked. And he was like, there needs to be some honesty in this. So that's where that came from. He was like, we're going to make this an honest thing. And one of our most honest videos, I don't even know if you can still find it on YouTube, but we went to Florence, and like haphazardly, we're just like, hey, we don't have a place booked for tonight. Let's go to Rome. Yeah. So we went to Rome, and we saw
they're still there.
So much of Rome. I mean, literally almost everything except the Vatican and the catacombs in one day. And we just kind of vlogged it.
I think my feet were bleeding.
I had shin splints. It was terrible.
But it was great.
It was sort of this amalgamation of things that created Wolters World for us.
That's so awesome.
Is that a good synopsis there?
Not bad. You've heard me tell that story quite a few times. But you do need to add in the part. You have to put in the part that the part of it was I was upset when I thought about my friends when I got the guidebook, and it was one of those. It's kind of like when you read blogs, a lot of them like repeat themselves because they're copying off each other. Right. And when one makes a mistake, like 5 other blogs make the same mistake. Guidebooks did the same thing. And I was just so upset because I was thinking of my friends. Think how many friends do you get? They get to go to Europe, once or twice a year from the U.S. No, sometimes it's like once in a lifetime, or once every 10 years or 3 years,
or 10 days.
10 days. And so, like,
why waste it?
Why wait? Yeah, and so, like, if you think about it, some guidebook person gets paid off to write a nice review about some place, and then you waste 10% of your vacation, one of those 10 days, because someone got like free drinks. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's not right. That's just not right. And so we really wanted to focus on honest travel, and for us, I think it's really important to do that, because then people know the truth.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot. I mean, if you look at influencers, whether they're using a filter or fake clouds or whatever, it's not always the honest truth of traveling. And sadly for us, the honesty means that most brands don't want to work with us because they want a commercial. They don't want an honest review. So that's one of those things. But at least we have enough fans to support us, whether it's the Patreon or the members in our community or just the people that watch to help sustain us to keep making the videos. Because for me, that's what it's about, helping people out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's one thing that I've always enjoyed about your videos. And I'm not like a huge YouTube consumer, but when I do, it's like if I showed you a pie chart, I'd say probably 20% of it is Wolters World in some way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
1 of 5 channels. Yeah. So. But you've been doing this for a long time, and I don't know the exact timeline. You would know this a lot better than I do. But I would say you were probably one of the first, I don't know, 10, maybe first 100 like travel vloggers, if you will. So how have you kept it going for so long?
Well, consistency. And one of the things is, when we first started this, I wish I would have known how to edit a video back in the day, because it could have, I would have like holding my script with my notes and then like going over it, and then no pictures over the top, no nothing, just talking at the camera.
Y'all should look at those videos.
They're horrible. But the thing is, it was still decent advice, so people still watched it. And now you have like cinematography, like, oh my gosh, award-winning Oscar stuff that's like Bob's trip to Cayman Islands. You're like, wow, that's gorgeous. So I'm like, I wish I could have done that, because I think we would have done better in the beginning. But the thing is consistently travel, stick to what you believe in. Like I believe in honest travel, and I don't care where we go, because I want to go everywhere in the world. I want to take my family everywhere we can go, and I want people to see the world, and we've consistently stuck with being honest. I mean, we'll work with companies, we'll work with sponsors and stuff like that, but they have to, want to have an honest review, because there's products we love that have actually asked us to work with them, and I'm like, fantastic, like, we'll send you the product. Oh, I already have it. I actually have 2 of them. I'll just send it to somebody else.
That, no problem.
I can do it right now, but they're like, well, then make the stuff and send it to us. Yeah, here's your script. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but we can't do that. So
yeah. Now, are there any scripts that you look through and you're like, do I agree with this? Or if they're like, hey, we want you to do it our way at all, are you just like, look, if you're asking me to do something that you want me to do, it's going to be inauthentic, so no?
Yeah, that's kind of how I've done it, because most of the time, because they'll say, look, we're going to send you what we want you to say, and then I will tell them, like, look, I just want you to know, we do 5 love and hates, we do the don'ts, the shocks, it's all about honest travel, and if you're going to be asking us to say stuff that we don't believe in, I'm not going to say it. And for 100% of the companies we said that to, they've
all said, well, sorry.
Yeah, there's been a couple, and because they actually said, we'd like to do that. When I said no, I can't do this because I don't know your company well enough, they're like, you know what, we just want people to know about us, so you say whatever you want to say. I'm like, so I went, and I'm like, hey, if you're 80 years old in French, this is a great thing for you, but if you're not,
But that's so good, because just like you said, people are like really hungry for that authenticity, because everybody's so copied and fake and just everyone else. And so I think that has probably helped with your guys' success and your consistency. So,
and why we hope that you guys just keep going. So my underlying question is, if there's if you're telling me that you're going to start teaching another class, and so you're going to have to dial back the time that you're spending on Wolters World, I'm going to be like, how can I jump in and help? Because Wolters World needs to keep going.
Oh, don't worry. I got plenty. We got plenty. Good. I was actually I'm trying to figure out a way. We have a whole other series I've been filming for years that we haven't even started yet, because I haven't figured out my time to put it together. It's like, I had hair almost when I started filming these. But it's like, it was like there was no beard, and I had more hair. I had more hair, but whatever, so don't worry. We'll be good.
So on this note, for any of our audience that by slim chance hasn't watched one of your videos, can you share like you don't have to go through the whole video, but maybe your favorite like love, your favorite hate, and your favorite shock, or the do's and don'ts, like maybe just a couple highlights that come to mind.
So I think one of the things, because for those of you watching, we have a few different varieties. So the 5 Love and Hates was our first kind of like viral kind of videos, because we would go through like the things you might not like about a place. And so sometimes it's the little things. Like I always talk about Portugal, how they charge you for the bread and each pat of butter and the olives and this. So the €5 meal turns into a €20 meal. You're like, what happened? I didn't even drink anything. It's like, oh, there's all these add-ons. You had 3 rolls and you had 6 pats of butter and you ate the olives olives, and you looked at the ham, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So like there's things like that we'll go into because we really believe that if you know these things might happen, it's not a shock, it's not a bad thing. It's just So I know that's one thing for me.
I love it when we go somewhere with, just sort of a middle of the road expectation for a place, and it blows you away. There have been Nicaragua. Like I went there thinking, it'll be nice and there's beach and whatever, and but it blew me away. I mean, it's one of my favorite countries I've ever been to. Just I don't know. That's my favorite thing is when I walk into a place and I am just blown away at the people or the landscape or whatever it is, and it's usually a lot of that hinges on the human beings, I mean.
Yeah. And I think that's a big don't I have for people is don't be afraid to talk to the locals. Even if you don't speak the language and they don't speak your language, you can still communicate. Like people will find a way. And it's great because we've met wonderful people all around the world. And it's amazing just knowing a few words, like especially if it's a country where no one, like you go to Lithuania and achu, which is thank you, or labas, which is hello. They're like, oh my God, foreigner, you know a word. You need to drink something for that.
I did that to a woman at O'Hare Airport, and I heard her, and I knew what she was speaking was Lithuanian. Not that I can speak it, but I understood that that's what she said. And I said labas, and she turned around, she went, oh! And then immediately in English was like, what? How do you, And that was fun. So yeah, just a few words can change the entire, the whole idea of a trip. It just
and that's why just like just learn like please, thank you, beer. I mean, you'll be good to go.
Yeah,
I think that just like you said, I mean, we found the same thing in Paris even, and they always just like hand you the English menu because they're like, oh, these people they're foreigners, they're not going to know anything. And if you at least make an effort, people are so much friendlier because they just appreciate the fact that you are taking an interest in their country. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, how did you guys, first of all, how did you get started in travel? What made you have that bug and what made you have that desire to want to like pursue it?
Well, I always had it. My parents were kind of hippies. They sold everything at one point and started driving across the country with
They did van life before van life was cool.
in the early 70s.
RV life forever.
And so my parents were they always had, even when we lived we always lived in a place, but their early marriage was just gallivanting, I think. But we lived in Southern Arizona when I was a young kid, and we were gone almost every weekend. And, I've seen all those places that you guys are planning to go to later this year out west. I've been to all of those. As a young child, we went and did all sorts of stuff. He, on the other hand, never really, they went to Ohio.
Yes, I'm from Illinois, and our summer vacation was going to Toledo, Ohio to see my grandpa, and we would go and have pancakes.
You went to Myrtle Beach or something once, didn't you?
Yeah, once. And then we would go to Cedar Point and Sandusky to see our buddies at Deering. So that was our summer. That was our summer vacation every year, was doing that. But we did have a couple, we did go to Myrtle Beach one summer when I was third grade, and then we did the Disney trip I think in sixth grade, but no one wanted to go to Disney because we were too old, but whatever. And then that was like the Florida trip, and then there was when I was in high school we did do a trip to Hilton Head, and that's it. And now my parents travel abroad like 3 times a year, but we never did anything when I was a kid. So
isn't that frustrating? Our family was the same way. They didn't travel anywhere, and then now they travel everywhere. So it's like one of those things that like you inspire them, which is great, but also then you're like, why didn't we take any of those school trips when I was?
I think so many people, when they're raising their kids, especially our parents' generation, were like, well, we can't possibly take kids, and there's still that stigma that you can't take kids out of the country and you can't really go somewhere with children. But it's obviously we do it all the time. I mean, Caleb just got his 50th country last week, right? Yeah. And he's 13. I mean,
Liam's got 45 and he's 8.
We're proof positive that you can do it, and it does take more work, but it's worth it. Right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is I know when I go, because we don't take the kids every time, so Joss will do some trips with her friends, and I'll do trips with my friends, or maybe I'll go to a conference or something like that.
Once in a blue moon, we'll go together.
Once in a blue moon. Once.
We went to Chicago twice.
What was the second time?
We went for 2 conferences.
The YouTube conference? Oh, and then I went for a training.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we went a grand total of like an hour and a half away.
Wow.
Yep. Big
and
stuff.
we went to Turks once. There you go. Yeah. No, I mean, that's one of the things is a lot of people just flat out say, no, I'm never going to take my kids anywhere. Or people will write to us and they'll be mad. How dare you take your kids out of the country? And they should be, I'm like, they should be doing what?
Yeah.
What?
I mean,
why not show them the world? If you have the opportunity, do it. If you don't have the opportunity, I can understand that. But if you have the chance, I think it's a really great thing for them to see more of the world. Because then your kids I feel that they're more understanding. They see the differences. It's like, try to explain abject poverty is really tough. But when they see kids playing with burnt matches in the dirt, even a little kid at 5 is like, oh, yeah, maybe my life is pretty nice. It's things like that. And there's also the cultural side of it too. I mean, it's a really wonderful thing. But I know not everybody can afford it, so that's one thing. But there's people that are just, I mean, and I understand people that are like, look, we travel just the 2 of us all the time. I can understand you want to do that because we have an amazing, wonderful wife like mine. You want to travel with her and not share her with the children or the dog or anything. But I also think that, a lot of families sometimes like throw away their kids when it comes to like, oh, we're going to live with the grandma and grandpa. I'm like, why don't you take your kids sometimes?
Yeah.
Because the thing is for us, we do actually multi-generational travel. Like we'll travel with my parents sometimes or her mom sometimes and stuff like that. And the thing is, it's great for the kids because then they see the grandparents as more than just cookie makers. Mm-hmm. It's like now they see and
they've created some really interesting memories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you don't have to go abroad to do that. You can, grandparents can come and take them to, the zoo that's 45 minutes down the road or something, and that is just as impactful. It's spending time in an unusual way, something that's different than the daily. But we didn't quite finish that. Mark's travel bug really started when he did study abroad with Rotary.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I remember I met this girl from South Africa, and my mom was in Rotary, and we didn't end up hosting her, but I became friends with her when we were in high school together. And she's like, you should try the study abroad stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, they have like 6-week programs. Just go in the summer. I'm like, all right, I'll try it. She talked me into it, and so I went for the 6 weeks in Australia and loved it. I came back. I'm like, I want to go for a year. So I finished high school a year early. What would have been my senior year, I was gone. I went and studied in Finland, and I came back to college here. Then I went abroad twice in college and did my master's abroad, did my PhD abroad, worked abroad, and so it was like.
But that thing, that Rotary thing, it's available to anybody that applies and gets selected. I mean, there's criteria, right? But you meet the criteria, you get to go on this trip, and so it's more doable for more people. People just don't necessarily think to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I interrupted you, and I wanted to bring it back to.
No, you go ahead. I'm just enjoying you talking about me.
Build
them up. That's good. So I love that you guys started traveling, kind of a little bit before you met each other, but then you talked about how travel kind of brought you together. And how did your travel start to kind of evolve and change once you guys were a couple? Because we've found that there's a whole different element to traveling as a couple versus obviously solo travel. And so talk about that and how you guys have kind of navigated that. And then even bringing your kids with you. How's that changed?
Well, the kids put a little kibosh on the romance sometimes. That's why the multi-generational travel and the grandparents take them for a night or something like that.
As nannies, let's be honest.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom, but you're probably not watching a podcast or listening to podcasts, so I'm sure you're okay with Grandma. No, I think, one of the things, Jocelyn, I think we've done very well is when we were dating, since we were across the pond from each other, we talked a lot about what we liked, what we don't like, our beliefs, our values, and things like that. So we really saw that we had quite a bit in common. And I remember, I was talking about going to Vicenza, Italy, and she's like, oh my God, Palladio's hotel. I love him. I'm like, Palladio? And she was surprised. I know. She thinks I'm the most uncultured person in the world.
I don't.
You know Palladio? Yeah, I've been to his house. I've been to his stuff. It's where my buddies live.
Not everyone knows Vicenza, Italy. I mean, people know Venice. I say Vicenza, and people think I'm mispronouncing Venice on the radio.
Is that how they say Venice in Italy? Italian? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yes.
there's
so it's interesting how you find that. But the thing is, like, we'll go places. Like, so for example, I like to go to Germany because I like my pork and my my beer and stuff like that. And Jocelyn is.
I can't stand German food. I mean, it's just so filling. I eat a day's worth of it, and I'm good for 6 months. It's just too much for me.
So, like, I'll go to Germany this summer with my mom and my dad, actually, because you know, and that's what you start to see is like, when you travel together, I feel you start to have places that you really identify with each other. Because like now we have like our second home in Paris, and we don't have actually a second home.
No, we don't have.
A second home, but like we go there, so it feels like a second home. So.
Right.
Honestly, we go to Paris, we're not even going to so many sites. We're just going to see friends, or we're just going to see our usual haunts and stay in our neighborhoods and stuff like that, because it's like
that was a test. The first time, so I came over to visit Mark, and he took me to Paris, and that was a test. I didn't know it was a test, but we went to Paris. So I was there for 10 days or something, and we went to Paris for like 3 or 4 days, 4 days maybe. And
my birthday, I think you forgot that.
But just be quiet. I got to Lisbon. He's like, all right, so day after tomorrow we're gonna go, and I'm like, cool. Can I just, instead of hauling my suitcase, which was only a carry-on, I said, can we just pack a backpack? Is that sufficient? And he was like, yes. And I know in the back of his mind he was checking off a list, going, heck yes. Like a score one for me.
Yeah. And I always tell people, it's like, you should go on a vacation together before you get married, because you'll start to see it's like, look, I like them, but I don't like them that much, like it really gives you some things, because when you're together 24 hours a day, because it's one thing when you live together because you have a job. Or one of you have a job, or you both have jobs, or neither have a job, but you got other stuff you got to do. Like, you might be going to work out, and you might be going to work out, but at different places. Mm-hmm. But when you're traveling together, you're together.
You're stuck, man.
And so that first time and the thing is, the first time you travel together, you might not think that we might need some time apart, because you feel you always have to be together. Over the years, we've learned that, you know what? I will take the kids part of the day. She'll take kids part of the day. So, like, for example, I like to film in the morning. So I'll let them sleep in. I will go film a bunch of stuff. I'll come back. She's like, you take them. Then I'll watch them. She'll go do her stuff. We'll meet together for late lunch and do that. And so it's kind of like
how a lot of our days go, especially in Paris.
Yeah.
Because it's, home to us in some way. So I go get my hair cut or whatever. There's just things that we do to be on our own. And we have different interests. I mean, we have a lot of similar interests, but
art, food, wine. We like that.
Then I can go drool over buildings. I mean, I can literally, like, I have pictures of me hugging a couple of Palladio's works.
And I enjoy architecture, but I'm not like.
But that's my thing, right? So yeah, I'm a little weird about it. So what?
No, that's what I love you, baby. You.
I'll go do that while he goes and does, his thing somewhere else,
Yeah. So I do have to take this opportunity to brag about Marissa a little bit. So on that whole, like, hey, you should take a trip together and see if you really like each other. Yeah. So I was coaching a college baseball team at Parkland College, where you guys are at.
Yes, I know it.
So they had
Cobras.
Yeah, exactly.
Go Cobras.
Or whatever they do. So I was like assistant coaching, doing their strength and conditioning stuff, and they had a preseason game, and the coach was like, "Hey, see you in Nashville." I was like, "Okay, I guess." And Marissa and I had just started dating 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a week and a half.
And we're just hanging out one day, and I was starting to think these things like, man, a lot of things are clicking and stuff, and in the back of my mind, we were sitting there having a conversation one day, and I was like, I gotta go to Nashville. It was like almost suspect, like, you want to go to Nashville with me this weekend? It wasn't even a real question. It was like it's like a test, and then also like you do realize that I'm going to be analyzing you the whole weekend, right?
Yeah.
And so we went to Nashville, and then I won't tell the whole story here, but it was amazing. Like, we clicked on every cylinder. We were both able to be ourselves.
We drove to Nashville. As
complete strangers. Yeah, 5-hour road trip.
That's
5 hours back.
Yeah.
We were like singing and like belting songs in the car. We had never, sang around each other or anything like that. And we went out in Nashville.
Isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So that was after that trip. It was like we probably accelerated, 6 months or a year in our relationship, just having that experience together where we went away together.
Yeah.
So.
But we've also, I'm sure you guys have too. I've also had opposite experiences where you go with a person who you thought it was going to be a really awesome experience, and then it turns out to be very uncomfortable and awkward, and you're like, this is not at all how I thought this would go. And so.
I thought she was going to say, But our second trip, no, they've all been pretty good.
No.
Oh yeah. No. We've yes.
I
don't want to say anything because I might give it away for people that might watch this. So I'm like,
yeah, no, there was.
Yes.
I remember one I took in college with a couple of my girlfriends, and it nearly destroyed one of my friendships. I mean, it was just horrible. Mm-hmm. And she and I were fine before that, and we spent a lot of time together. Mm-hmm. And it nearly ruined it. You know, I mean, we worked it out, and some of that was just that we were young and dumb, but.
So yeah. I do want to ask you guys this. So one of our goals with our platform, and I assume one of the maybe secondary or tertiary goals of your platform is actually to encourage and inspire people to travel more. So so that people aren't discouraged by like us sharing stories about how, oh man, we did have some horror stories. Why do you think it is that when you finally get away and you're like, you spend all of your waking hours together, you really get a chance to see how people are? Or do you think you think that's something that can be overlooked? What do you think it is about getting outside of your element, really exposing who someone is?
Well, that's a lot of question right there. I mean, you don't have all the distractions, and you're thrown together so much more, right? And so a lot of those defenses that you have, I mean, sometimes our phones and our iPads and whatever, those become defenses, right? So that we don't have to deal with something. But when you're on a trip with one or two other people, you're really reliant on them. Mm-hmm. And even if you're very independent, you still have to count on them for something. And you just see where they're failing, and you're failing too. I mean, it's certainly on you too. We all do it, but can you live with those failures of your own and of someone else's? Like that's for me, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's important. Anytime you're going to go on a trip with people, whether it's someone amazing like Marissa or someone incredible like Jocelyn or Mike or I, whatever.
Guys.
But I think it's really important that you really discuss things before you go because, I mean, I went on a guy's trip to New Orleans 2 weeks ago?
10 days ago.
No, because I got back. I was home for a day between New Orleans and El Salvador, and
that's how we roll.
But before we went, my buddies and I all had a talk. Hey, what is our budget? What are we looking to spend? Mm-hmm. Because you know what, people. I mean, it's one thing when you're in high school and college because we're all kind of broke at the same level. But then once you've been working for a while, people's finances go different ways. Yeah, they're different. And so I think it's important, like, look, we need to talk about these things to make sure everyone's okay. Because if someone is, like, not going to be able to pay their rent because you wanted to, like, have oysters or go to, I wanted to sit front row at a boxing match or something, like, you need to know that because that's one of those things that really tear a friendship that you don't even realize it happens. So you want to be upfront. It's like, look, where do we want to stay? How much do you want to spend? Things like that. And if you have friends that can't necessarily pay some of the stuff, maybe you're like, you know what? I'll get this thing. Don't worry about it. Next place we go, you get it. You find something else because we've done that sometimes. But I know, like, because I've got friends of mine that I love to death, but I'm like, I'm never traveling with them again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just like, I love you, man, but...
And that's why you're not traveling with them, because you do love them.
Yeah, and that's when you realize. And it's tough because sometimes you have friends that I know, like, look, they would be awesome going to Mexico. They'd be awesome going to Turks and Caicos, but I would not take them to, Ireland or whatever. You're like... You kind of get the personality once you travel a lot, and sometimes it's like, look, I know you, we're friends. I know that your personality, what you like to do fits better.
It's not going to fit.
It's not going to fit this thing here.
Actually, one of my girlfriends, she has never been abroad. Well, she's been to Mexico. I take that back. She's been to Mexico, but she's only done like all-inclusive stuff. And so she's been itching for me to take her on a trip. And we were going to go and do this girls' trip to England. I want to go to the Jane Austen Festival because I'm also a book nerd. Can you tell? So we were going to go do that. And I looked at her recently. I was just like, you know what? I don't want to do that. You're going to hate it. It's not that you aren't going to be happy to go somewhere else, but this isn't going to fit you. And I said, I'd rather take you somewhere else. And she was like,
and also it was like it's also where she really wanted to go because it's her first trip to Europe and she's always dreamed of going to Paris. And that was another thing. It's like if she's going to go to Paris, she wanted to go with someone that really knew Paris, and
I do. So I was like, I'd really like to take you to Paris, and she just jumped. She was like, "That's it. I want to go do it."
Yeah, like, she was like,
"Let's book the ticket
in the bar." Like, yes, this is it. And this is before we've been drinking. It's like first drink bar screaming. You're like, oh, it's going to be one of those. But that's the thing is sometimes it's kind of when you're trying to figure out where to do a guy's trip too. You know, you're like, yeah, and then it's like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing. And I remember seeing that. I was like, and I'm so happy for her because this is, I mean, since we've known her, she's like, that's where I really want to go. That's where I want to go.
But to be honest, the reason I didn't suggest it before is that privately her husband had told me I wasn't allowed to take her there because he wanted to take her to Paris.
But after 5 years, after 5 years of her not taking her, I'm like, look.
How long you wait, right?
And that night, I was like, Chris, she wants to go. Can I just take her? Whatever. I ain't use last names. I said, she wants to go to Paris. Can I just take her? And he's like, oh, hell, just go. You know? So tickets are in the works right now.
Awesome.
That's so exciting.
But sometimes it's just about knowing your friend well enough to know what they like. And if you haven't been to a place, if neither of you have been to a place, it's a little more of a gamble. But, you know, your friendship has to come first, right? So sometimes you just have to put things aside to make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing is realizing that it's okay to take a little break. Mm-hmm. Like, because that's why, you know, like when I go with my buddies some of my buddies we do like a few days and some we do a week. And the ones we do a week, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go film on Thursday. So we have the break already planned in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good that you have people that respect your boundaries for sure. So I want to know, I mean, obviously you guys have traveled to so many places. I want to know, obviously, what's your favorite? And then what's one that you don't want to do again, but you're thankful that you did it?
I kind of go by favorites on continents because I can't really, I don't feel like I'm able to just say, you know, one over another. But for Africa, Rwanda was it for me. Tanzania was cool, and I'm glad I went, and I would be open to going again. But Rwanda is somewhere I could go many times over. In Europe, it's Paris particularly, and then Greece and Italy are tied up there for second. And I love Nicaragua for the Americas in general. So, and I love Japan. Mm-hmm. That's good. Is that okay?
Yeah, I love this.
Oh yeah.
As for a place that I'm glad I went to, and I have to think about that. Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe Turks and Caicos. Like I'm glad I went, but I don't need to go back there. I feel like I got a very good taste of what it is and everything, and I enjoyed it. I just there's more of the world I need to see, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, if we did the same like continent by continent, I always love going to Brazil because I used to live there and I speak Portuguese or basically speak Portuguese. I think there's still some in there.
Comadre lingua.
Not that good. So that I was that for Europe. It's really tough for me because Italy and France I can always go to and no problems. I just always enjoy going there. Africa for me, I really love my first visit to Tunisia. I've been back since the spring. Revolution, Arab Spring. Right. So it'd be interesting to go back now and see it because I really enjoyed going there. I did love Rwanda too. That was a fantastic experience. Yep. In terms of like, where else? Oh, in the U.S., where I always like going to New Orleans. New Orleans is like, I go there about once a year with some buddies because I go to Savannah love going back twice a year.
At least twice a year. Yeah. But I lived there for a long time, and it's I think of it as home because I didn't grow up anywhere. I lived in so many places, so that was
your first real home.
That was my first real home.
Yeah.
So you weren't born in Savannah, Jocelyn, but you kind of grew up there?
No, weirdly, I was born in Springfield, Illinois, but I only lived there until I was 2. And then we moved to Arizona, and we just kind of bounced around a bit. And so Savannah was the first place I chose, and that's where I went. I went to college there, and I would have stayed there forever had it not been for this big oaf.
I
ruined everything.
To draw a really interesting correlation, I was actually born in Brunswick.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's
cool. Similar story.
Good stew down there.
What's that?
So you make some good stew down there.
That's what they say. Yeah. But just like Jocelyn, I only lived there for a couple years, and so as long as I can remember, I grew up in Illinois.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Just
all
back and forth, right?
Yeah. Where is somewhere that you guys have not been that you're just? I'm sure there aren't many, but that you're man, we can't wait to go there.
Well, I have books of places we were supposed to go. Like I'm looking out a Southeast Asia book. I'm looking at a New Zealand book. I'm looking at an Israel book. These are all trips we had scheduled to do, and then something happened. And it all got thrown out the window.
Mm-hmm.
So it happened. So I know for me, the ones I want to go to, Israel, Egypt. I want to get back down to Australia. And then probably I would say Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, like Southeast Asia. Like right now.
And I really want to go to Ethiopia and Bhutan. I'm just sort of enamored with those ideas right now. And that's how I was with Rwanda for about 4 years. And Rwanda just exceeded, and I had high expectations and they exceeded every one of them. So I'm hoping that the same will happen in Ethiopia and Bhutan. So
that's so good. I love both of the answers because usually when we ask that, people are like, Italy, or like some like really generic place. I love that you guys are like branching out. Obviously, you guys have kind of been all over, which is awesome. But my biggest question that I wanted to know from you guys is, what is something that you each have learned from travel specifically that you had to travel to learn?
That honestly, people are pretty much the same everywhere in the world. We like to make this division amongst everyone. We're this, they're that. We're this, they're that. But the thing is people are pretty similar. They like laughing. They like meeting people. They like sharing experiences. And, and it doesn't matter where you go in the world. If you're like, hey, what should I eat here? They're going to be happy to tell you what to eat. They're going, hey, what are you doing here? Like, people are so wonderful everywhere. And that's where it's funny. It's because in our videos, we'll talk about the people so many times. Like, oh, you always say the people. I'm like, no, there's sometimes we don't say the people for a reason. Because some places the people really do make the experience. And it's one of those things to say that's like, oh, I go to a few places. I was in France. I was in Italy. They were really nice. Yes, they were. But there's other nice places too. And you start to see, it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
There's good people everywhere. And that's one thing I enjoy.
Mark stole my answer, but I would
that's
say...
why you were trying to pinch me. I thought you were trying to be lovey-dovey on my back. It's recorded. There you go.
So it is that people are the same everywhere, but it's also grown. I think the word is empathy. Like that you feel empathetic rather than divisive. You want to knit together with more people. And I think sometimes it's like if you say something in some places in the world, it's immediately divisive. And that's not the case everywhere, because when you get on a one-on-one basis, what do we all really want? We just, we want to be loved and cared for and to enjoy other people's company. And that's what I've come away with, I think. Yeah.
So we, Mark, and one of the questions we just asked, New Zealand was on the list. So we actually went to New Zealand. That was our first major international vacation that we took together. Cool. And I actually proposed to Marissa while we were there.
Yeah,
we were there for 2 weeks. And of course, when people ask us about the trip, we're like, it's beautiful. It's, they take care of the environment, and the ecosystem there is so clean and vibrant and beautiful. But if there's one experience that we tell everybody about that we remember we could probably write the script of the conversation that went on for 4 hours that night, is the day that I proposed. We stayed in an Airbnb with this older couple, and when they found out that we had, I had proposed to Marissa that day, they quit everything they were doing. They brought us a bottle of champagne and a bottle of wine. And we just sat there by their hot tub and talked for 4 hours
about love and relationships.
It was like a Wednesday night. I'm sure they were a retired couple, but I'm sure they had other stuff to do that night. Mm-hmm. But when they found out that we were their guests, and that had happened in our life, they're like, this is what you need to learn about 40 years of marriage. And you guys,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
And it was if you guys have ever looked it up, it's in Opanoni, which is on the east coast of the North Island. It's beautiful. There are a couple islands. It's kind of like a Hawaii-esque kind of thing, where you can see the other island in the distance. And So we're sitting there like on the hillside in the hot tub, just like looking out at this awesome view. And Clyde, he kept saying, "Nice view, huh?"
Like,
and you get a couple more drinks in, he'd be like, "Nice view, huh?"
Like, good backyard.
But I share that because so people are similar. We all have similar interests wherever you go. But I think that it's the relationships that really make the experience.
Right.
So like being there with Marissa and building our relationship there was great. But also those little times, what I remember the most is interacting with people, and hearing the accents and the stories and all of that. It was really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y'all have to invite them to the wedding. You know that, right?
They're
we
getting
should.
an invite,
I was gonna say we gotta find them and send them.
At least send them an invitation.
They would love that.
I texted him a couple times, and I forgot that they're like 12 hours behind. So I was like, man, he's kind of being a jerk. I don't know why he's taking so long to respond. And then I realized
he was in bed. It's like, dude, you're killing me here.
Yeah.
I'm retired. I don't get up till 10.
Exactly. On a serious note, we met another couple there, and they're from England and Scotland, and they do have an invitation and are planning on coming to our wedding.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
We made such a strong connection with them.
But that, I think, just like you said, the people make or break the trips for sure. And so that's something really cool that you guys are showing and teaching your children too, is that, you guys can connect with people all over the world. And I think that probably makes them stronger little humans. Like they can bring that back and show their friends, like, look at all the things we do, especially in the world of technology. Like them having that connection with people is so invaluable. And that is something that I think you guys are doing a great job with for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they play a lot of football or soccer with kids
Yeah,
all over the world.
They take a soccer ball with them everywhere.
I tell you what, that's the key to making friends is a soccer ball around the world.
Soccer ball and a pack of Uno cards, because you don't have to speak the language to play either of those.
And
There you go.
can do it.
That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. So you guys have experience traveling on your own, traveling with kids, traveling with parents and kids, parents and animals. Or am I going too far? No.
No,
we're good.
What are some? What would be some tips you have for our audience that they're like, Mike, Marissa, we'd love to travel more, but we have kids. How quickly can you defeat that argument?
Shut up, do it.
Just do it. It's your kids will be fine. It's the parents that are the ones that have the issues when you travel. That's one thing I want to say.
The thing is that when you're parenting, whether you're at home or you're on the road, it's the same. We'll still put our kids in timeout. It doesn't matter if we're on a plane or we're in a mall in Brazil or
in Portugal where the old lady yelled at us.
There was that moment. The same things happen, and people are like, well, what if somebody gets hurt? Well, you know what? Children are living and thriving all over the world. I mean, we've been to hospitals in Portugal,
China.
We went to 3 in China, Germany, and
Italy.
Things happen.
Oh, you mean not just to
get
not just
stitches.
to visit? You guys have had to go there
for hospitals.
Pardon me?
So not just to visit the hospital, like sightseeing, you had to go there.
So I put this collarbone almost out of the skin.
Holy cow.
Caleb cracked his skull open.
I birthed a baby.
She birthed a baby.
In Portugal.
She got hit in the face, in the eye with a bamboo and became a pirate for a few weeks.
Holy
Not
cow.
only like 1 week.
Yeah. There's no pictures because that wasn't allowed.
Aww.
Jocelyn, do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that experience? What was it like, realizing, oh crap, I'm gonna have to go to a hospital in a foreign country? How'd that all go?
So I think the first time that I did it was when I stabbed myself in the eye with bamboo, and you know what? I was in pain, so it didn't matter. I just wanted to be fixed. And Mark fortunately was fluent in Portuguese, and quite frankly, all the doctors I've run into, except for in the public hospital in China, save that one instance, the doctors all spoke English. It may not be the very best English, but it was good enough that we could certainly, get through things.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant while we were living in Portugal, and My experience there, I've had a child in the US and one in Portugal. My care was probably better in Portugal than it was. It was much more hands-on than it was here. It was Dr. Patricia is one of my favorite people. I had a very difficult pregnancy. I was on bed rest for 4 months, and I spent a month in the hospital there. It was crazy, but I spent that month there. In the States, they would have just said, you know what, go home, don't get up, and come see the doctor every week. But they're like, you know what, we want you to come and stay here, and we're gonna give you a sonogram every single day. And they were much more hands-on about things, and it was an extremely wonderful experience. I mean,
and we were blessed because if we would have been in the U.S., I don't think care wouldn't have been as good, and she would have been in a much more precarious situation, and we might have lost Liam, and we might have lost you. So
it was
a dangerous time.
It was rough, but now I look back on it and I forget the absolute abject horror and the boredom.
You always forget that, yes.
The boredom was a giant factor because my two really good friends that lived there had both moved away. So I mean, I was lonely because he was working all the time, and
then because I was a PhD student at the time, so we didn't have a ton of money. So because we could actually go see her and then come back, then we have to take a taxi, and so it was really tough.
Kind of expensive.
Yeah, and then
But we've had to take the kids. What happens when you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get to a hospital? You don't really care that you're in a different place. It's that you need care, and there's someone to give it.
Yeah, and the thing is just not knowing which hospital to go to, because we had in China, we had ended up in 3 hospitals because we went to the bone hospital first. And they're like, no, we're the adult bone hospital. So then we went to the children's hospital, and we were there for a while, and that was bad. And they're like, so we went to the private one, was across the street, which literally is just people that are like, oh my God, I don't want to be in this hospital. I want one that will give care. You go over there for that.
And the private one, you had to pay
you had to pay a membership fee.
It's a lifetime membership for $300 US approximately. So basically, that's about what most people's ER visit is. Most people have like a $250 deductible. Mm-hmm. So to us, our TA who is helping with the translation and stuff, she's like, it's very expensive. You cannot do it. And we were like, you know what? Let's just see, because the other places they treat 10,000 children a day in the public hospital, and it was it was a madhouse. So we went across the street, and they said $300, and Mark and I were like,
and they're like, we have an ATM right there. I'm like, hey, all right, thank you.
Yeah. That was. I'm glad we were able to do that.
We were lucky we got to do that.
Yeah, we were able to pay that, but you just need care, and there are good doctors everywhere.
Yeah. And that's what we always say. Is like, make sure you know what the emergency number is in different places you go. 112, 911, whatever.
903.
903. Like, just depends where you go.
Yeah. So, Mark, a minute ago, when we were talking about, not a lot longer than a minute ago, but when we were talking about taking your kids, and some of the comments you've heard are like, well, you need to leave your kids home. And your response was, to do what? Like, what are they going to, like, what are they missing out on by going to explore and things like that? So what's to say to people that have that kind of attitude where they're like, oh, well, I don't want to leave what I'm familiar with, when we all know that most of those people are like quiet desperation. Not every time, but they're like, they're like quietly unhappy or not as fulfilled as they could be. And not that our solution, like traveling and just like getting out of the U.S. is the answer. But in a lot of cases, we heard it recently on one of our guests said it. People put these margins on their life, and they live within those margins, but they don't understand like what's beyond those margins. And I think a lot of it has to do with just kind of being stuck in their own little bubble. So what's to say to people like that to help encourage them to see like, look, what you have is really great, and it might be like what is outside of what could be even better.
Yeah, you know what? I think that what you have is amazing and wonderful and beautiful, But then when you get out and you see other stuff that is just equally or sometimes better, you also learn to appreciate what's in your little box even more, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that I appreciate so much about the United States, having been to so many other places. But there are also things that I would like us as Americans to strive for, you know, because I see it happening in other places. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Yeah, it's similar to what I would say, and I think with getting outside, it's more getting outside your comfort zone, because when you watch the news, you watch anything, it's always like try to scare people as much as you can, and so it's like, I mean, I can understand why people are like, we go places and they're like, how could you take your kids there? This thing happened, and I'm like, well, actually, it's safer there than where we live, but you know, who cares about statistics? You know, do you have one story? But I understand, because if that's all you hear about, I mean, we went to El Salvador, which has had some real serious issues, but we had a great time, and we didn't have any issues at all. But it was one of those things, like, you have to be able to step out, which is not always the case, and sometimes it's easier not to step out.
You have to be brave.
Yeah, you got to be brave sometimes.
You have to be brave.
And the thing is it's funny, because you know we've gone to all these places and people have asked that before, and I never really know. I'm like, no, I've been doing this for so long that I don't realize that it's not always a comfortable thing to do. Like for me, I'm like, why wouldn't I take my kids? Why wouldn't I do that? Because for me, when I travel without them, how's the second day when I'm gone?
How about he went on that guy's trip? He was not even to Bloomington, and y'all know that's only 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
He wasn't even to Bloomington before he calls me, he's like, honey, I just miss you.
Aww.
I miss you too, honey, but I got a little laundry I got to get done.
It's like, I have to take the kids to school. Shut up. They're annoying me. Hurry up.
It wasn't that bad. But, I mean,
and
I love traveling with my girlfriends. I love going and doing those things. But it is hard to leave my family. So for me, the bravery it comes not in traveling, but traveling without my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree a lot with that, because I mean, I just did a girls' weekend too, and just like you said, it makes you appreciate what you have at home. It makes you appreciate the person that you're with, because sometimes, just like you said, if you're with them all the time, you're like, but then you like listen, and a lot of times on girls' trips, you know that they're, you know, oh, my husband does this or my person does this, and you're like, my guy's pretty okay, you know. You're like,
you're not so bad after all.
So
I
was wondering,
I enjoy those when I get back, and she's like, you're not too bad, Mark. I'm like, oh, thanks, babe.
Yes. Yay. That's so good. Anything else you have?
I want to learn a little bit more about like what you have planned with Wolters World. Mm-hmm. So one of the main reasons why we connected is because of your awesome YouTube channel, Wolters World, which has been around for a long, long time. What brings you the most joy about that? You alluded to kind of how it all got started. Is that still it? Or is there something else that, like, when you're recording these videos, you're like, man, I just can't wait until fill in the blank?
Actually, the nicest thing is when people write and they're like, you know, I watch your videos and it really helped me and my family enjoy this place. Like, I'm like, you know, it's really nice to know that we were a little part of somebody else's adventure. And it's nice because I know, like, look, I put my heart and soul into this to be honest and help you, and it helped you and your family have a great time traveling and doing these things. I mean, that's, like, for me, that's the greatest compliment. I'm like, you let me be a part of that. And that for me, that's the little tingles I get, you know, when it's like, hey, that was a good video. This is going to help a lot of people. Like, we put some together, and I'm like, sometimes it's hard to, like, add a lot to it. But there's, like, you know, I put out a video on Kansas City a few weeks ago, and I'm like, you know what? I really enjoyed that town, and I never really thought I'd want to go there. But I went there, and it was actually a good time. I'm like, people need to know about this. That you don't have to go, you know, 5,000 miles away. Sometimes it's just, you know,
down the street,
down the road. So
yeah, I like that. That's a good point. We went to Pittsburgh, and we kind of were like, everybody's like, ooh, why would you go there?
Awesome city.
Yeah.
I love Pittsburgh.
Even though it was December 13th, it was gray the whole time, terrible weather, freezing, and we live in Houston now, so we weren't prepared for it.
No.
It was an amazing time.
So much fun.
Awesome city.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You know what? I went there I was probably like 22, and we went to Kennywood, and I love coasters, so that was a great place. But I thought Pittsburgh was awesome. It was just a fun, lively place.
It gets ranked really high on livability. I had a friend of mine, she did her PhD there. She loved it.
Minus the weather. It's awesome.
Yeah,
we had
I know. Case in point.
I would be remiss if we did not ask at least a little bit. Tell us about food and like what, as far as, I mean, obviously we do a fitness and travel platform. And so we do a lot of like, how do you stay fit on the go? What is your nutrition like on the go?
And you want to ask that to me?
So yes.
Let's clarify one thing. I met Mark in a personal training studio. So I know that Mark is actively involved. Yes. But we do know that Mark also likes German beer and pork and German food.
Yes. So those don't quite correspond to a healthy lifestyle. So I do exercise. Yeah.
What would you say to people who are interested in travel and want to try all the things, but also, are trying to either do it as far as like a balance or, those kind of things?
I do that.
She does that.
And I do it fairly well. Where I have a problem is actually exercising when I'm traveling. But you know what? All the food that's on that menu is local. Mm-hmm. So just because it's healthier than Mark's pork knuckle that is like this big, I mean, you can make a better choice.
Why do you gotta hate the Haxa?
Because
Haxa's amazing.
Hox is like...
It's from God.
It's from God.
Joy, it's that amazing.
Yes.
Came down from heaven.
Like manna.
It must be similar to bacon.
So it's ridiculously bad for you.
Yeah. It's a once
like 40
a year.
Pounds of meat.
It's like a once a year thing. You have it once a year. And that's
but you can,
all you can
whatever
have.
You're looking at on that menu, it may all look good and you may think that like in Italy that you can only eat the pasta and the pizza, right? But Italy has some
good meats,
really good meats,
veggie dishes,
great vegetable dishes, rice dishes, whatever. So you can eat chicken and rice Italian style. It doesn't have to be like boiled chicken and boiled rice, right? But you can eat the healthier version. And there's so many places in the world that I feel like have incredible diets. I mean, my family's Greek, and the Cretan diet in particular is one of the best in the world. Like, there's tons of studies on it, right? So whatever you eat there is going to be good,
Yeah, and then you look at places like Rwanda, which vegetarianism is huge there, not because of like health reasons, but because of financial reasons. Mm-hmm. And so
cow's worth more when you can milk it every day.
You can milk it, you can get the blood from it, you can use the manure for it. So I'm not going to kill it for beef because this will feed my family for years versus one, season of steaks or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very interesting concept. It's very interesting to see, but their food's fantastic, food. And I think one of the things is, I mean, I'm not always super bad. I've been better with my food and exercise and stuff like that. But I think one of the things you have to look at is that there's stuff you really want to try. Mm-hmm. Have it. Prioritize. Like, you're not going to be able to eat everything here. So figure out the things you really want to try and go ahead. Have that. But don't have the starter, the main, the dessert, and then another thing,
And the drinks all the way through. I mean, if you can limit, like, the crappy calories, right? There's just empty calories.
Because sometimes when it's like we're with the kids, like I know, like the kids, I know one's not going to eat everything. I'm like, you know what? I'll split something with him. So you're kind of taking some stuff, or like Jocelyn will get a smaller plate and I'll get a bigger plate, and then we'll share stuff. And so sometimes it's just little things like that you might not notice it, but you know what? If I got like a 700 calorie thing and she has a 300 calorie thing and we split it, I'm not putting in 700. Yeah, you're putting more than 300.
I'm not eating half your 700.
I know, but at least it's something. Yes. You try to find some ways to do stuff.
We appreciate all of that. Yeah. Were you gonna add something else, Mark?
Well, no, I was going to say. And then another thing that people don't realize is, especially if you're in the U.S., is when you're traveling, you're walking so much more than you usually are. I have another friend I travel a lot with. He's a Husky guy, and we go on trips together. And he'll drop 10 pounds on like a 2-week trip, just because he is not active at all. And then he gets the activity going when he's doing this. And I'm like, if we would do this here, it's like, yeah, but it's Champagne and it's all flat, and I'm not seeing the Eiffel Tower. And I'm like, true.
Yeah.
But if you could keep that activity up, it would go well. And so it's kind of interesting to see that. So
actually, I think most of our trips, I don't usually gain weight. I mean, I might gain a pound or two, but that's gone in a couple of days, generally speaking. The other thing, for me personally, nutritionally, is I got to drink a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't always think of. I live with this thing all day, every day, and we take it on trips. And if I drink 3 of those a day, I've got 75 ounces, and that's my goal.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, we appreciate all of that. So one of the things that we try to communicate is, like we always ask our guests those types of questions, like what are some things that you do to stay healthy on the go? And what we've found is we can kind of pull out principles, like find some balance or find small ways like sharing meals or, staying active, book a room on the 20th floor versus the first floor, different things, different ways to kind of, I hate this term, but I'm going to use it just for the sake of conversation, to kind of hack what you're doing to get a little bit more out of it. Mm-hmm. So a little bit more activity, a little bit better nutritional profile, ways that you can kind of trick yourself into doing it.
Mm-hmm. How often do I take the stairs too?
Yeah, the stairs, and
even just at the airport.
Yeah, if you're in places like in Paris, you know what? There's a subway stop every 500 meters. Mm-hmm. We'll go to the next subway stop, and you know what? You do that there and back. That's a kilometer. Hey, it adds up. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of little things you can do.
That's awesome. Well, we so appreciate you guys spending your time with us. Mm-hmm. You guys.
I'm glad we could be on Two Fit Travelers.
Hey, so exactly. Excited. We're so thankful. Real quick, and kind of signing off and wrapping up. I'm afraid to ask this, but what does your next 3 months of travel look like?
Actually, it's quite calm. I've got a trip to the UK. We got a trip to the Cayman Islands, and then
I'll probably be in Savannah.
You'll be in Savannah. So that's February, March, April. So it's kind of chill.
That's cool.
Usually April is always a down month for us. That's kind of like a.
You know what? Our down months are when our kids' birthdays. Generally speaking, it's April and August tend to be the most calm because we get birthdays, and family wants to be there for that, right? So
but it's been crazy so far because so far this year I did a trip to Savannah, a trip to Atlanta, a trip to Huntsville, Alabama, a trip to New Orleans, and a trip to El Salvador.
Yeah.
And it's February 11th?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's this year, 2020, right? Just in the last month and a half.
5 weeks.
Yeah.
That's so great. That's so awesome. So go ahead.
No, you first.
I was just going to say, what is one tip, a tangible takeaway that you have for our audience? There are a lot of fit couples and traveling couples. So what's one tip that you can give them? Just kind of a final closing.
It could be a travel tip. It could be a relational tip. It could be a life tip. It could be a parenting tip.
Whatever you want.
The first thing that comes to my mind is pack light, because that reduces your stress so much. For our family of 4, we take 3 carry-ons, and that makes life easier because you can almost always find space for a carry-on, whether it be on a train or a taxi or whatever, and you don't need that much stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can pack light because whatever you need, you're going to be able to purchase somewhere else, Yeah.
And we've been all over the world, and you can get anything you need anywhere in the world.
There you go.
Or you can learn to do without something. And it's amazing that you don't have to have all the things you think you have to have.
Yes.
Absolutely. I like that one.
I think my advice would be for anything is just appreciate what you have. And if you get a chance to travel, just be very appreciative that you get to explore this wonderful world we have. Because, our parents are getting older and, their friends are starting to pass away. And they're like, oh, I wish I would have done this trip. I wish I could have done this. I wish I could have seen stuff with the kids or done more with them. And the thing is you don't have to feel like you have to go to Australia with the family to make it a worthwhile vacation. Realize that taking the kids to the local zoo or just taking that time to do something with them. And, take your mom on a just mom and daughter's trip. You did one to Maine or Vermont a couple years ago.
Which was equally as great as when my mom and I met in Springfield for lunch. Just for no reason. It's about the time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about all the travel we do, because we do. I mean, it's probably 80% we're traveling with family. Okay, and so like we've got the kids together or the grandparents together, stuff like that. So it's like we get to have real family time, because think about it, once you leave your house, when you leave for college, you don't really ever go back. You visit. And when you're in college and when you're in your 20s, you go back to visit, say hi to mom, eat dinner, then you go out and meet your friends. And then in the 30s, you're coming back and you're saying hi, but you're dropping off the grandkids, and it's all about focusing on the grandkids. And then and you don't really have that chance to really have a family with your parents as you being part of the family, like the thing. And this traveling,
kids do that.
Yeah, well, hopefully they will. Don't do it. They will. But it's nice to have, because you have these times and you're like, did I spend enough time with my kids? Did I see my mom enough? Did I spend enough time with my dad? These are times you get that chance to say, you know what? Maybe we don't get to spend 24 hours a day together, but the time we did get to have, we did something special with it. And if that specialness is heading down to St. Louis to the zoo and seeing the penguins there, awesome. If it's getting a chance to go to Germany together and go to the Christmas market, awesome. If it's going to Paris going to Italy with your mom, and your mom's helping us with one of our students who had a rash all over her body, and we're like, oh my God, is she going to die? And she's like, nah, she's good.
My mom's a nurse.
Mom's a nurse. And so you're like, awesome. And so those things just really, bring it together, and you're like, you know what?
Just makes it meaningful, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, for me, is why I get so emphatic that please take your kids when you travel, because it's really it just gives you more time together.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Well, guys, once again, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to hear from you again soon, and we wish you safe. Yeah, absolutely. We wish you safe staying at home for the next few weeks.
Yeah.